You're listening to the Sales Development Podcast, the only audio forum focused and dedicated 100% to sales development. If you care about growing your skills and getting more new sales appointments, pipeline, and closed-won deals, you came to the right place. Subscribe to the show on YouTube, iTunes, or Spreaker, and be sure to go back and listen to all the episodes for the best strategies, tips, and tactics out there on running a high-performance sales development program. And now, your host, founder, and CEO of Tenbound at tenbound.com, David Delaney.
CRM has been proven to limit sales reps' responsiveness, persistency, and cadence. It's a design flaw, and it's losing you deals. That is why today's sales leaders use sales engagement platforms like VanillaSoft. Check it out. Go to vanillasoft.com and start your free trial.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sales Development Podcast. This is Optimizely Part 2 because I'm in the office today. So I'm honored to have my next guest on the show, Ms. Jackie Woods, Manager of Sales Development at Optimizely. Good morning.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Jackie's also a Tenbound alumni. You came to one of the trainings a while ago, and you've been crushing it ever since.
Oh, I don't know about that. I try. Yeah.
So, Jackie, if people haven't met you, tell us about, how you became into sales development and got into Optimizely.
Yeah, definitely. So I actually started in sales development straight out of college. So I actually started at Optimizely as an intern about, almost 4 years ago now. So it's been a while.
Really?
Yeah. And
wow.
I was right across, for those who don't know, Optimizely is based in the Bay Area in San Francisco. And I went to UC Berkeley. So I was just right across the Bay and was given the opportunity to come and intern here. So did that for a few months while I was still in school. And then post-graduation was able to start as an SDR. And worked as an SDR for about 2 years, and then was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to start managing the team, and have been doing that for a little over a year now. So,
wow,
yeah.
That's amazing. I had no idea that you started as an intern and then became an SDR after that.
Yep. Yeah.
Wow, what an opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so for 4 years, how long has the company been in business?
Since 2010.
Okay, so you've kind of grown up with the company.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I would say in the past 3 years, we've made a lot of transition in terms of product and the things that we're bringing to our customers just broadly. So it's been a neat opportunity to watch the company transition, grow, and to see the different types of clients that we're working with now.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a real success story for the tech industry in the Bay. And the fact, the tech industry gets a bad rap a lot of the times, but the fact that someone like yourself goes from intern to individual contributor to manager and is really growing up with the company. I mean, what an awesome opportunity.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Super fortunate. Yeah, it's been great.
It's great. And I know, as a manager, we have a lot of people that manage teams listening on the podcast. And one of the big things that, you're working on now and that we're all constantly working on is recruiting. So I thought it would be interesting to dig in a little bit about your process and your experience with on the recruiting side.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I want to start with the interview process. Like if someone is potentially going to be an intern or a sales development rep, they're prepping for the interviews. Now that you've gone through that whole process, what advice would you give the applicants as they're prepping for an interview?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple things that I wish that I had known when I was interviewing way back in the day, and things that I look for now. So there are, I think, 4 main things that I would really encourage SDR applicants to focus on. The first one is to not just understand what the company or the product does, but specifically focus on the value that company is providing its customers. Especially for sales development, I really like to see in an interview that a prospective SDR is making that connection between product and value, even just based on whatever information we have available online. And then customer case studies are a great place to start and understand this value. The second piece is I think there's the inevitable questions that are always asked in most interviews, which are, why this company or why this role? And for me, I really like hearing about your background and why your past experiences drew you here, both to the company and to the role. So having a compelling story to tell around that is really important.
Got it.
Again, it's focusing on what about the value that a product or company provides its customers is appealing to you versus just reciting that the product or the company is cool. So I think that it makes things a little bit more compelling. And the last one is I'm always really impressed by broader market knowledge. And I know this is oftentimes a little tricky for people to gauge from outside the company, but if you do your research and you're able to speak intelligently to your interest in the broader market that company is working in, or your excitement about where the company is positioned in the market and what they're going to accomplish, things like that, I think will really separate you from a lot of other candidates.
Big time. I think a lot of SDRs, especially if they're going through like a recruiting agency, they'll be talking to like 10 companies, I mean, sometimes on the same day. Well, that's a lot, but like 5 or 6 different companies.
Yeah.
And these factors will really separate them from the pack, it seems.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it takes time and it takes extra research, but I think that those are things that you can do to really show a hiring manager and a team in a company that you're really interested in investing your time and your career, with them, which is something that the company is looking for ultimately as well.
Yeah. Give a crap.
Exactly.
Put in a little bit of time. Excuse my language there, but and so let me just unpack this a little bit. Yeah. So finding out the value that the company creates versus just the products that they sell.
Right.
So one of the things you said is the customer case studies. Mm-hmm. So how do they go about that? Do they like read the case studies and take notes or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's customer case studies. A lot of time they're trying to prove to other people who might be looking at this company to buy their solution or whatever that the company is valuable. It's going to lend you something, right? And so understanding what customers are getting from the solution is a great way to be able to then take it from, okay, well, Optimizely is an A/B testing platform to Optimizely enables its customers to increase ROI off of their digital properties or what have you, right? So you can see that in the case studies versus just like looking at the homepage or looking at the product descriptions and things like that.
Yeah, because a lot of times, I mean, just looking back to like nightmare scenarios, but a lot of times people can't even answer the first one about the product. Like, what is
also true.
Optimizely?
Yeah, so that's step one. Yeah, know that.
So first you got to know what they're actually selling.
Right.
Then you want them to take it a step further and talk about the value.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. And then why past experiences connect to the role, right? That was the second one. So it's like, what if you're just graduating from college and you were a sociology major and you were doing keg stands like 2 weeks ago? Like, once you sober up from that experience, what can you do to tell that story of why you are connected to this role?
Yeah, I think that people tend to place a lot of emphasis on, I'm a hard worker or I am good at communicating or some of those general skills. I'm a fast learner. So if you don't have experience, it's sort of the go-to thing to say is I learn fast, which is awesome. Yeah. But so does everyone else who's interviewing. Everyone's going to say that they're a fast learner, right? So I think what's interesting for me is understanding and thinking about how the person who's interviewing is thinking about translating their past experience, whatever that may be. It could be anything from an internship. It could be anything from something they learned in school, any sort of club. Like it doesn't have to necessarily be directly like an SDR role somewhere else, right? But thinking about how they're going to translate that into their new role. And then also just their overall level of general business acumen versus like a specific background. So we have a variety of people on the team here at Optimizely. For example, a bunch of folks are straight out of college. We have people with recruiting backgrounds, SDR backgrounds, consulting, finance, and so we kind of pool all those people together. You get a really interesting mix of thoughts and a good kind of like just general team structure of the way that people are going to vibe and learn from each other. So I'm not like always looking for that exact relevant experience, but thinking about, well, why did you apply to Optimizely? What could you do here? Digging into that and thinking about how you could help benefit a team with whatever experience you have in the past.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, having a diverse set of experiences and just a diverse group of people, they can all bounce ideas off of each other and try to bring up the strength of the team versus just everyone exactly the same.
Yeah. So we look for that, I think a lot of managers look for that is a good blend of skill sets that you have on the team and of experiences, and everyone can bring something to the table. So thinking through what that something is that you're going to bring to the table and being able to articulate that well in an interview, it's tough, but it goes a long way.
It's huge. And then I want to ask you one other thing about that is the broader market for the company. So say, you're getting ready for your interview and you learn a little bit about the company. How do you then take that out to learn more about the broader market of the company?
Yeah.
So that they can prepare?
Honestly, a lot of it is going to be looking at Googling stuff, and it's looking at Crunchbase, it's looking at LinkedIn, it's looking at the competitive landscape. And I think what's interesting too is try to see if you can figure out what specific market that company is operating in. So again, looking at Optimizely as an example, I think it's easy to say, well, you're a tech company, SaaS, that's where you play. But we think about ourselves as we're in the experimentation market. Okay. So see if there's something that you can find that you can tap into that's a level deeper from like, oh, I'm interested in tech and B2B. Okay. It's and if you can find those things by just Googling like Optimizely competitors or looking at some of the things that our customers are using us for, looking at other sources of intel in the organization, Crunchbase, things like that. Okay. LinkedIn, piecing those things together.
This is awesome. This is we're giving away all your secrets for people. If you're thinking about
I know.
doing an interview with Jackie, you're going to have to change up all your things.
I know. We have a mock call too. So there's a whole other part on the mock call that's important to prep for. So yeah.
I want to ask about that too. So as you're looking through profiles, you're getting LinkedIn profiles, or I don't know, do people still send resumes anymore, or is that?
Yeah, well, so I'm blessed to have an amazing recruiter. Quick shout out, Bryce Annable, awesome girl. Got to put a little plug in there for her. She's great, but nice. Who handles a ton of our initial research, and then helps pair us with a lot of the right candidates for interviews. So people will either apply online directly, or then we are also reaching out to folks over LinkedIn and such.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. And are there 2 or 3 things that Bryce looks for or that you look for that says like, okay, this is more interesting than the 10 other resumes that came in?
Mm-hmm. I think that there's a couple, some of it is looking at the way that they're telling their story, I think, in the cover letter as well. So, that's important, is if they're doing something totally different, if you're working in recruiting or something else, why is this something you want to transition into?
So they just still do cover letters?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Send an email. Mm-hmm.
All right. And do you use a system like an applicant tracking system, or is it just come in? Okay. So they do a cover letter. And so you actually read the cover letter.
I will.
And you're looking for a good story about why they're either trying to go from college to your team or coming from a different thing.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
okay.
I go in there and I read the cover letters. I think Bryce is looking for experience in the sense of things that will translate over into some of these broader skill sets, themes that we've identified for the SDR team.
Okay.
So that doesn't necessarily have to be something like in terms of their current role, but if there's something on their resume about what they've done or how they've executed against something, or an initiative that they've led, whether that be in college or team or something like that, we'll look for those things and pick up on those and say, oh, this is an interesting skill that we're looking for currently to build into our SDR team. So a lot of what we'll do is think about, well, what's the current mix of the team right now? Where do we see rooms for improvement? And then we'll look for some of those skills in people's backgrounds, resumes, cover letters, things like that. And obviously also in the interview process, that will help lend, itself to the way that we're trying to develop.
That's right. So it's hard to get your foot in the door at a company because you might be like the superstar, awesome person, but maybe the company is not necessarily looking for that exact mix of skills at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's like it has nothing necessarily to do with you, but it's just like you're not exactly what they're looking for at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that I would encourage everyone to keep in mind as well, is because I think that there can be a lot of, it doesn't feel great to get rejected from things, but it's not necessarily something that you're doing wrong per se. Like you said, it can be just a general team structure or something specific that company's looking for now. And it doesn't mean that you wouldn't be a good fit later down the line or for other similar companies.
Yeah.
So,
and does anybody ever come back to you like after you did an interview and rejected them and be like, why'd you reject me?
They do. And
what do you say?
That's a good question. Again, big shout out to Bryce. She's awesome with that. Yeah, no, but there have been a couple times. I know. She's
getting a lot of kudos on this.
She deserves it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, she's fantastic.
Because that's really hard. I mean, you're sitting there, you're like, gosh, Optimizely was cool. Jackie was cool. I'm awesome. Like, why did they reject me?
Yeah, we try to give a lot of feedback in the interview process. So we'll either give it directly to them. So we have a whole mock call scenario as part of the process. And during that time, we want to see if we, pepper you with a bunch of feedback, how you take it, what, the way you internalize it. And so we give you a lot of direct feedback in the interview process. And then for earlier in the process, Chris and I will give our feedback to Bryce, either to deliver, or there have been times where if there's someone who I think has a ton of potential, but just wasn't like the right fit that we needed now, especially because we have a pretty lean SDR team here. Yeah. I'll hop on the phone with them, or Chris will hop on the phone with them and give them some feedback, some guidance that they can use for their other interviews that they might be doing.
Okay. So. That's really hard. That's one of the hardest things I would think, beyond like firing someone. And that's like that call times 100, but that's a totally different topic.
Yeah.
But so let me ask you this. So let's just switching gears a little bit. Mm-hmm. Say there's an SDR on your team and they're really, really focused on becoming an AE. Mm-hmm. And assuming at the company there is an appropriate like AE role, are there 2 or 3 things that you could give them to work on so that they have a shot at that?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is going to be individualized. So part of it is really taking stock of your skills very honestly, which is how are you performing in your current role? What will you need to learn to set yourself up for success as an AE? And then from there, it's what skills do you already have? What skills do you need improvement on? And what skills do you not have that you totally need to learn? Yeah. And a lot of that, you don't need to do it alone. You can get the answers to this from working with both your management, AEs, other SDRs, and if you have access, AE management. I think learning from AE management about what they're looking for on their team is absolutely invaluable. And then part of that is making yourself known. So again, if possible, really encourage you to grab coffee with the manager of the team that you're trying to join, have one-on-ones with the different AEs across the team. See if you can join a few of their team meetings maybe, or involve yourself in a project that will benefit that team, like thinking of a new campaign that the AE team can leverage as well. Mm. So it's helping you stay top of mind for that role. And then the other part of it is pretty straightforward, which is just shadowing and practicing. Learn how these AEs are running their deal cycles with different types of companies and in different scenarios. And if possible, finding an AE mentor who will let you shadow them, or if possible, participate in running a deal cycle from start to finish so you can see the whole process, I think is really helpful as well.
Nice. That's awesome. And so if they were, in the role of an SDR for a shorter time period, do you ever see SDRs wanting to jump way ahead, like before they kind of have gone through and followed this advice? And what do you say to them in that case?
It's typically a meeting where we sit down and we say, well, how are you going to, what are you missing? Have you evaluated your skill? Right. And the answer is always like, well, no, and so then we think through. Part of it is, I think, in helping on my end, at least as a manager, is helping people who are really, really eager put together a plan of how they're going to get to where they want to be. Because I think for a lot of folks that helps, you can have these clear benchmarks that you can hit. And I think that helps you sort of understand, like, measure progress, improve on where you want to be, but it helps kind of curtail this just leap over before you're ready. And so that's something that I'll tend to do, is sit down and say, okay, well, I want you to talk to this person and I want you to meet with this person, and helping connect those resources so they feel like they're really learning from those folks. Yeah. And then I'll challenge them in their current role as well. So it's like, I want you to do X, Y, and Z in your current role that's going to help you get these skills in order to, move towards an AE role at a faster clip.
Okay. So it's almost, you don't have like a checklist or something that says like, you checked all these boxes, now you can be an AE.
Yeah.
It's more subtle than that, right?
Right.
Because there's all these different factors that are involved.
Exactly. And it's very individualized. It's based a lot on the individual person and their skills that they currently have and where their gaps are. So I like to approach it that way with them, and then work from there to build.
Okay. And is that the same? So the next one I was wondering about was other positions within the company. Like say there's no AE positions, or you're an SDR, but in order to be an AE at the company, you have to have like 20 years of experience in the industry, which happens a lot.
Yeah.
What about other positions?
Yeah. Other positions are similar, but a little different in the sense that I think, like the first piece of advice I would give is one I'll give to sort of any SDR that wants to move into a different role, which is that you have to do well at your current job first. Yeah. And I think sometimes people can get caught up in this idea that they'll inherently do better in a different position because that's where their skills are more aligned. That's what they enjoy doing.
Totally.
But, from a management perspective, the hiring managers on those teams will be wanting to add talent that have shown that they've done well in previous roles, regardless of what that role necessarily may be. And there's no easy way to get around that. So that's step one is if you're an SDR and you want to move into a different role, you have to do well as an SDR. Period.
Darn it. Okay.
I know. Unfortunately, I know. But and I think, and that's true if you want to be an AE as well. It's like that's true for any role. But I really think that depending on your company culture, right? So I'll caveat it with that. Yeah. I would certainly leverage your manager if it's appropriate. I have a lot of those conversations with my team about different roles that they're interested in, even if it's something as simple as, hey, I want to learn about this role. How do I do that? And if managers don't always know the exact path to promotion for every single functional role, but they can help get you connected with the right people. They can help be an advocate for your career internally. And they can also help you put together a plan of action for skill development for that role.
Yeah.
So
if they're a good manager like you.
Oh gosh. Well, I hope.
If they're a crappy manager, then you're going to have to.
Yeah. So that's why I caveated depending on company culture, right? But
that was a nice way to put it.
Yeah. But if that's not possible, which, it isn't always possible,
sure,
then I would turn towards focusing that on finding a mentor in that department, where you can shadow learn. And I think understand that sometimes you're going to have to do some double duty, some extra hours after work. Your current role is still going to come first. And so making sure that you're prepared for that. And also that sometimes if you're asking to be involved in projects, particularly projects that will help out your mentor, help take some stuff off of their plate and really help you be seen as an asset. Some of it's going to be grunt work at first, but I think that it's still a great way to get your foot in the door with other teams. So don't shy away from that.
Are you in sales, but you're not using a sales engagement tool? Then you're probably losing out on revenue because you are not engaging with prospects at the right time, with the right cadence, and with enough persistency. You need VanillaSoft. Start your free trial today. Go to vanillasoft.com.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, if before you have all these kids and everything and all this stuff taking all your time, no offense, guys, if you're listening, but it's like, what the hell, go flat out, like do your job, completely kick ass, and then get some grunt work from your mentor, for a couple hours, on the backside and really make an impact and then show what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that. That's great. Mm-hmm. And so I got one more thing about that. Have people been able to do that in your current company where they not necessarily get into AE, but they've been able to get into different departments? I think you mentioned that.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, just recently, this like last 6 months or so, we had 2 different folks from the team move into different cross-functional roles. And I want to put a little side note in here that the primary motivation for them doing that other role was not because there wasn't an AE role available, but they wanted to be an AE. Yeah. So I think I think for everyone listening to think through that yourself as you're thinking about whether or not you want to do a different role. But they had a lot of passion for these new roles that were being created. And there was a CSM opening, so customer success. And one of the gals on the team had been, made it very clear to me a while before that she was very interested in the customer success route. And so we started to think of projects that she could work on with the CSM team, what she needed to get done. I had sit downs with their manager to align with her. And so it helps make that girl the clear choice for that role.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of that. And then she was able to move into that role, which is awesome. And then the other person who was able to move into a different role was a totally brand new role. We had just created more of an inside sales role, similar to an account executive role. And he was given the opportunity to kind of pioneer that team, and that was exciting for him. And so he was really passionate about sort of building out what might be a new team here and being the first one to do that. So it was neat, I think that they had some clear ideas of what they wanted to do and where they wanted to go. And then we sort of all worked together, obviously them leading the way and all the hard work and effort that they put into that to get there. But
you make a lot of good points. One is to have a supportive company and culture that supports that.
Mm-hmm.
And then also having the candidate that the hiring manager wants, because they might have a completely different type of individual in their head that's not on your SDR team. So you got to align that, which is tough.
Exactly.
Yep. And then the candidate has to work really, really hard. They have to kick butt in their current role and do a great job getting the other job, right?
Yeah,
so
and I speak on this from a startup perspective, right? I think that there are a lot of organizations that also have much clearer defined, angles and training paths and programs for career pathing. But for anyone who is working at a smaller organization that is trying to think about, okay, well, how do I shift what I'm doing? There is a lot of hard work that goes into that. And then for the folks that have maybe some more well-defined career paths, I think that you can leverage some of those tips to help set yourself apart or help accelerate your path there.
Big time.
So
that's an amazing opportunity. Let me. I just want to shift. I got a couple more things I want to ask you. One is one of the things that challenges SDR. So finally, they got the role. They're on your team. They're doing a great job. But now it's 6 to 12 months into it, and it's a really hard job. And they start to kind of drift a little bit. Like it's just so repetitive. It's so robotic. Like, how can they stay motivated in the face of this tough job that they've signed up for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first part is to really think about why you're not motivated. So some of the repetitiveness and things like that, we hear that a lot, but I think that you can take that, there's, another layer to that and really internalize, okay, why am I not motivated right now?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, are you struggling to perform and you're getting frustrated because you're having like a bad few months or something? Maybe on the flip side, you're performing really well consistently and you're craving a new challenge. Do you feel like you're not learning as much as you would like? Are you getting tired of sales development because you want to explore opportunities for other roles? And it could be a combination of those things, but I think really digging into that and then, understanding what those driving factors are behind your lack of motion or motivation are absolutely key in determining how to address the issue moving forward.
Those are great points.
And then, I think also with all of that said, I really encourage everyone to view motivation as something that's sort of in their own power to control. If I step out of my manager hat for a second here, I think just in my own sort of personal career, I try hard to rely on myself for motivation. It's definitely not always possible, but really take some time to diagnose yourself, think about why you're not motivated, and then see, okay, do I lean on my peers, my manager, lean on yourself also to put together sort of an appropriate plan of action to address those challenges that you're facing rather than sort of sitting and letting it spiral.
Yeah.
I think understanding the root cause is really important there to helping
communicating
get better.
This is so funny because I've got a couple of friends who run outsource SDR teams in the Midwest, and the people are just so happy to have a job there and have health insurance that I don't know if they're motivated or not, but they just do it, but we're very, we've got very first world problems here, and which is great. But let me ask you this. Is there anything that a manager can do to encourage motivation, or is it just intrinsic to the person? They're either going to be motivated and gritty and stick with it or not. What do you think?
Oh, well, I think some of it is a little intrinsic.
Yeah.
I think. With that said, I think that there's certainly a lot that managers can do to help. Part of what I work with my team on is understanding if they're not feeling motivated, and then B, why. So while I'm encouraging everyone to think about self-diagnosing some of those things and then bringing them up as appropriate, I think that's also totally on the manager. That's part of the job, is to ensure that your people are happy, and if they're not, know why, and then figure out with them a plan to help address that if possible and if appropriate. So I typically will do that in one-on-one meetings, getting feedback from them, understanding how they're feeling, how they're doing. That's when they'll flag frustrations to me or feelings of, I want to get promoted sooner or those things. And then we work together based on each individual person and what they're struggling with to help them move forward from that.
You can hopefully get the motivation back.
Yeah.
But what if, I'll put you on the spot a little bit, what do you do if you got somebody who you really thought, and I'm not saying that this is happening at all, but you really thought that they were gung-ho and motivated and they were going to crush it, and then they get 6 to 12 months into it and you've got a whiner on your hands. What do you do with a whiner?
In my personal opinion, I tell them that they're whining.
Okay.
Yeah. I think
but is that appropriate in the HR context? Can you actually say somebody you're a whiner?
No, I never call them a whiner.
Okay.
But in the moment when maybe I'm feeling like they're whining about something, then I'll challenge them on why they feel that way or what they could do to make it to impact that. I don't want people to be victims of things that, especially things that are outside of their, things that are outside of their control. That's one thing. Yeah. Things that are inside of their control, like, that's something that we gotta, we work on together. So I take that opportunity then to provide them that feedback and challenge them on what they could do differently to help make the situation better.
Okay, good. They're lucky to have you. Because a lot of people would just slap them. So.
Well,
no, but that we definitely can't do.
Yeah, anyways,
no, that's good though. You definitely create an environment. Let me ask you this one other thing. What do you see out there? Not necessarily with your team, maybe with your team, with other teams, that you think SDRs right now listening to this can improve on?
Yeah. Number one is don't diminish your role or your value because you're in sales development. I think that's, we've talked about that before as common Big sort time. Of issue or theme. And by that, I mean, think of yourself as a trusted advisor for a bunch of cross-functional groups. Like SDRs sit between, there's marketing, where you can give advice to marketing on which events and campaigns are working, right? You can be a feedback loop there. For your account executives, you have access to a lot of campaigns, content, data, things that they don't necessarily have access to. Research that you're doing on these companies for them. You can be a trusted advisor for your account executives. For your teammates, you can be a trusted advisor on the things that are working, that aren't working, collaboration. And even for management, a feedback loop with your managers about what's working and what's not. I mean, SDRs sit at the center of all of those different groups of people. And I think the most successful SDRs that I've seen in my career are trusted by their AEs, their teammates, management, and their customers also, the customers that they're interacting with as sources of knowledge and guidance. And they do that through this idea of I'm going to master my craft and I'm going to be seen as a trusted advisor to people rather than, I'm just an SDR. I'm just here to set up meetings.
Yes, that is such great advice. I love that.
That's it. And it can be easy to get trapped into, I need to hit my quota. So therefore, let me just, flop these meetings over to my AE and we'll see. But I really encourage people to think about the value that you provide to the organization because it's a lot of value.
Yeah.
So
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. The phone, is the phone dead? Do people still use the phone or is it just a dead mechanism?
This is everyone's favorite topic. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
No.
I want your opinion
I think the phone can be used extremely well and strategically.
Okay.
I like to think about our strategy just broadly. And I think for a lot of sales development organizations as well as it's all multi-channel nowadays. Yeah. It's, we focus on trying to get people wherever we can get people, and people are on a variety of different channels. Go to where people are on. So that includes not just email and phone, but it's LinkedIn, it's doing video outreach, it's Twitter, it's a variety of, blogs and things. So it's a variety of different ways to get in touch with folks. And phone is a key component of that.
Okay.
It really is. Is it a smile and dial culture nowadays where it doesn't matter if you ignore LinkedIn, ignore video, ignore email and just call them? No, that's not the case. You need to be present on a variety of different channels, but phone is a key pillar of those different channels.
I agree 100%. And so this is the last quick tactical one.
Yeah.
Do they send an email and then look for it to be opened and then call the person, or do you call the person first and then send them an email? Or does it just depend?
It depends. We have different structures of outreach depending on how we're trying to engage with someone, if they engaged with us with marketing or things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think generally if someone opened an email, we have alerts set up so that you can call them right away.
Yeah.
So I think that's really helpful. I think testing out calling at different times of the day is really helpful. Figuring out which time of day you're going to reach certain, roles, whether it be like executives versus practitioners is helpful. I would suggest for people who have interacted with marketing content, so any inbound leads, to call them first and then send them an email. Other times, for more of a colder outbound approach, it can oftentimes be a little bit easier to send an email and then call because you have something you can reference. Yep. So, but it depends on the situation.
Yeah. And thanks. I mean, people, like, when I think about what could SDRs improve on, that's usually like the first question. It's like, does anybody, because I get like a bunch of calls all day and they don't leave a voicemail. And I'm like, is this even a dead mechanism? But if it was like, you know, I had started to interact in some respect, and then the phone is like quicker because then we could just talk real quick, get something set up and go.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, well, this is good. So, you know, we've right up against the hour. I wanted to ask you about leveraging data for your SDR process optimization. Do you want to dive into that topic, or is that something that we can talk about on the next show?
Yeah, I think it's a deep, large, broad topic, so it's probably suited for a different time. But I think what's interesting, or at least what we're discovering here, is that there's so much opportunity to help enable our SDR team to be better by leveraging any sort of like key data points that we can to help inform like why things are working and why things aren't working. So that's sort of what we're trying to do right now. Yeah. For even if it's just for our like inbound lead funnel, how can we help, you know, make folks more productive, getting people through that? If it's our qualification criteria, how can we help our SDRs be sourcing more opportunities for the business and pipeline dollars for the business? So the plus side about any sort of sales development function is that inherently we're very data driven. We track activity, we're tracking meetings, we're tracking, you know, so we have all of the inputs, or a lot of the inputs already. It's about tweaking those, making sure that we're gathering everything we need, and then understanding, drawing insights from that, and then applying it to help the team get better. Yeah. So that's the way I think about data. There's a lot of different projects that I think are cool that help the team do things more efficiently, and also just with better quality overall that you can leverage data for. But I think it's a huge the rabbit hole. No,
it's a huge topic, and I want to dive into it with you. I just think that right now and we talked about that at the meeting. There's a huge gap, you know, in the sales development like marketplace of talent, of people that can take their expertise in data analytics and sales operations and really apply that to optimizing sales development. I think that skill set right now is like a unicorn. I mean, there's not a lot of people out there who are going around saying, this is my specialty, and I can take your sales development department from a lot of data like swirling around and not being used to something that can truly optimize your performance. So is that kind of where I don't want to, you know, put you on the spot, but is that kind of where you see your passion as far as sales development?
I would say yes. I think that there's so much opportunity there to help folks improve. We actually have someone here at Optimizely who is a dedicated marketing and sales development here at Optimizely. Sales development reports into marketing. Okay. Marketing and sales development, you know, operations manager who is our go-to on everything. Without him, we would not be able to understand how our funnels are performing, how to make our team better. Aside from a data perspective, aside from like the you know, the one-off, the call shadowing and things like that, but from just a systems and process optimization perspective, it's hugely valuable. And I've seen how much we've been able to move the needle since having that kind of focus on data. So I would say that is something that I'm passionate about for sure.
It's hilarious because I was brought in to run a team of 40 SDRs. Yeah. And they wanted to hire like 10 more people. And the first thing that I asked for is some kind of analyst to be attached to our team from an operations perspective so that we can get a handle on all this data, because it's definitely not my strength. And especially if you're leading a big team, like you don't have time to sit there and run all these reports and stuff. And they were like, no, let's just hire some more SDRs. And I was like, how do you pilot this huge complicated ship without a navigator? Yeah. It just doesn't even make sense. But it sounds like you guys are on that.
Yeah, well, I think it's especially with a bigger team. I think that in order to scale really effective processes across everyone, you need A, to understand what you're looking for and what's going to work, and which is the data piece. And then B, it's the enforcement piece. So that's really, really crucial. If you have systems in place, but no one is using them the way that they're intended to be used, it's not going to work. So I think that's where, or even if for sales development teams that don't have like a dedicated analyst, if we can at least get people, like from a management perspective, marching in the same direction in terms of ensuring that everyone is gathering, at least like getting the inputs in there for the, you know, the data inputs in there in the right way, like in Salesforce or however you track it.
Yeah.
That's at least step one. Because you can have an analyst, but if you don't have that data in there, you can't draw any insights from it anyway. So at least from a manager perspective, there is something, you know, that we can do at least in the short term until.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. Like it seems like SDRs, you know, have come up in a digital world, and so they're a little bit better about the inputting and keeping track of things and stuff like that. Whereas like the older crowd, this is like how you track
all on
that.
Notes.
It's always hard to get stuff into Salesforce. So it seems like that enforcement one, you know, is super important, and it's getting better. And so now, like, taking sales development to the next level is having good, clean data on the activities, and then being able to move the needle using those reports.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's really exciting. We'll dive into that next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much this is all great strategic and tactical advice for anybody listening, and we really appreciate it.
I hope it was helpful. A little bit, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. This was awesome. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Development Podcast, the only audio forum 100% focused and dedicated to sales development, with your host, David Delaney. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on YouTube and take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes. Your support makes our show possible. If you are struggling with your sales development program, contact us at tenbound.com for a no-obligation exploratory call. Again, that's tenbound.com.